Hello, this is Stephen from Owner Disown, and this is the moment you've all been waiting for. I know I've been waiting for it a long time too, since my first Alienware 15 I bought a few years ago. It's held its own, the 980M in there, but with the release of Pascal, you know, it's brought desktop performance to your laptop, which is fantastic. I had previously reviewed the Asus with the GTX 1070 in it, and that was a good machine. Had some shortcomings in it. So this time we're taking a look at the new Alienware 15. It's got the hallmark Alienware head on the top, and a beautiful lid. You'll notice the extra big back hinge in the way. It's all moved forward. What we have now is more heat sinks in here to dispel a lot of the heat, because we not only do we have the GTX 1070 in here, we also have the overclockable i7-6820HQ CPU. So that's default clocks is 100 megahertz over the usual i7-6700 HQ. So without further ado, let's have a quick look at it. There it is. What a beauty it is to behold, eh? It's got a good keyboard. It's got Windows Hello, which is a great method for logging you in. Means you can log in and still drink 2 mugs of coffee at the same time. So that's pretty handy. I should try wearing a hat or a false moustache and see if it works. But no, that logs in very nicely. The screen is good. So yeah, I mean, let's have a look at it. It's certainly heavier than the last one, as I mentioned, but it's still portable. Seems quiet to me, so let's have a look at the review now. So taking a quick look at the specs, it has a CPU of an i7-6820HK, which is a quad core with hyper-threading, so 8 threads. It's a 45 watt CPU, which can be down powered to 35 watts. 2.7 gigahertz is its base clock, with a turbo boost up to 3.6 gigahertz. The system I'm reviewing has 16 gigs of DDR4 2400 megahertz RAM, but can be upgraded to 32 gigabytes 2667 megahertz RAM. The system I have for a GPU has a GTX 1070 with 2048 shaders and a base clock of 1443 MHz, boosting up to 1645 MHz, and it has 8 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. It can also be configured with an AMD RX 470 or even a GTX 1060. The laptop has space for 3 SSDs and one spinning 7200 RPM hard drive. As for the screen, it can be configured with the base model of 60Hz 1080p panel, which I have, 120Hz 1080p G-Sync panel, or even a UHD 3840 by 2160 IPS panel. My system has a 99 kilowatt hour battery and a 240 watt power supply. Looking at the ports, it's got a Thunderbolt 3.0, a USB Type-C port, a Gigabit Ethernet port, a mini display port 1.2, an HDMI 2.0, a graphics amplifier port, a Noble Lock port, 2 regular size USB ports, a headphone and microphone jack, but there's no SD card reader, so that is a shame there. The laptop is just over 15 inches long, just shy of 12 inches wide, and 8 pounds in weight. Alienware has reduced its thickness by, say, about 25% compared to the previous Alienware 15. It's now about 1 inch thick. The keys, the trackpad, the Alienware head on the lid, and some excellent lighting along the edges and the base can all be configured to your liking. With an SSD, the system boots up really fast, and I really like the Windows Hello, where the infrared camera flashes at you and even recognizes your face even in the dark. This makes it a seamless system to log into. And here is the image from the webcam. So the Alienware 15 comes with an excellent keyboard. Keys are nicely spaced out, making you have a bit of a fit there, but no flex in the middle. I know the previous Alienware 15 I had a fair bit of flex in there, so they've supported the chassis pretty well. You open up the back, as you saw in my upgrading video. It's solid in there. It's a magnesium based chassis. The keys have 2.2 millimeters of travel. The trackpad is smooth. It lights up, which is nice, and it's got good 2-finger movement and other gestures which you can configure. It's got a left and a right click separate, and they're quiet, so you're not going to sort of like wake people up or drive people crazy by clicking away. So that's nice to have. Alien head this time is a little bit smaller. They shrunk it down. This symbol on the F1 key, that is for the graphics amplifier. It's as I mentioned before, it's a nice clean layout. I like the layout. It's you know, no stickers everywhere. Well, the front here is plastic. The back down to here is plastic too. Of course, the vent is plastic, and there's big vents there, so great for the air to go in there. So here we are outdoors, checking out the screen to see you know, if you're working outside, or you know, you want to game outside. It's a non-glossy display, so 100% brightness. You do get a few reflections, but everything is still clear. You can still read the text, and that's fine. Pointing in the direct sun, you know, yeah, you're going to get some glare. I mean, but you can position the screen so you know, you're not going to get that. So 50% brightness. You can still see things. It's not too bad, and the viewing angles are good. Of course, outdoors, when you tilt the screen far back, you're going to start getting the glare if it's pointing at the sun, but in the dark it'll be fine. The screen has minimal flex. This is what I like. It's nice and solid. So recording the ambient noise is around about 28 decibels. Having the computer run at idle hardly makes any difference at all. Under full load, the fans are just an audible whir, but nothing unobtrusive. It's okay. The front-facing speakers are good and loud, and certainly drown out any slight fan noise that might be present, so I really like the speakers. So running the Heaven benchmark for 1 hour, and we are looking at the surface temperatures of the laptop. We're at the center of the keyboard about 34 degrees C, touchpad around about 25, AWS keys, ZD keys about 31. So the laptop is very cool at the top. About 41 pointing at the vents. Up towards the top here, the front where the battery is, 29. See 40, 43 towards the back there, the heat pipe areas. So it looks like the much of the heat is not concentrated where it be on your lap, which is great, just at the very far back where all the heat pipes are. So I think that's very good for cooling. The BIOS allows you to overclock the unlocked CPU. So you go into the CPU performance mode and enable it, and then you'll notice the fan performance mode. Enable that to make sure you keep everything cool. And then we'll look at the different overclocking levels. Overclock level 1, where the boost is 39, so that's 3900 megahertz for 1 core, and 4 cores active 3700 megahertz. It's dynamically overclocked. And then you got level 2. where it increases it by 100 megahertz, so 4000 megahertz, to 3900 megahertz for 4 cores. Switching to level 3 will dynamically overclock the CPU to 4100 megahertz. So I've enabled overclocking level 2 and the performance fan mode in the BIOS, and immediately you can tell that the fans are kicking in pretty hard. You may recall on the ASUS GL502VS that the power supply was not supplying enough power. Well, I'm pleased to see that this power supply does 100% fully charged gaming after 4 hours. I must point out, when overclocking the CPU, the system might become rather unstable. Overclocking to level 3 is hit and miss whether you'll be able to get through a benchmark at all. Overclocking to level 1 and 2 is more stable, but often opening a 3D application such as a game would result in a blue screen of death, as you can see here, or just a shutdown. Overclocking the GPU, however, using the MSI Afterburner utility was a breeze. The core clock was increased by 197 megahertz and the memory clock 520. I think I was very impressed with that. And the temperatures remain cool, typically running the Heaven benchmark maxing out at 76 degrees Celsius. Here I wanted to test the temperature running the Prime 95 test on the CPU when it's overclocked to level 3. So initially I have it with a standard fan, and you can see that the max temperature was 96 degrees Celsius. So here I'm running the same test, this time with the power fan running, and I don't see any change in the temperatures. The 99 watt-hour battery in the Alienware certainly gave it plenty of juice to last 6 hours 40 minutes at idle, 25% screen brightness and power saver activated. In comparison, the ASUS GL502VS only lasted 3 hours. In gaming, it was a closer match, Alienware lasting 58 minutes versus the ASUS 50 minutes. So gaming on battery, you can expect about 50% of your frame rate compared to being plugged in, but still, this game is still playable at 30 frames per second. It's crunch time. Here are the benchmarks you've been waiting for. Here's the Atto benchmark, and on the left is the SSD that I put in, and on the right is the 7200 RPM spinning drive that Alienware puts in their laptop. Here's the Cinebench R15 result just on the CPU at stock, 632 points. Here's the result of the CPU overclocked to level 1. That's a boost clock up to 3900 megahertz. The score is 729 points, but also look at the CPU temperatures, about 94 degrees max. And finally, with the CPU overclocked to the level 2, which is the 4000 megahertz clock, the score is 763 points, so a good performance increase, but again the temperatures are high, 95 degrees C. Now for Assassin's Creed Syndicate. The settings used were ultra high, with textures quality at high. Assassin's Creed, just the CPU overclocked at level 2. Here you notice the computer just shutting down during gameplay whilst the CPU is overclocked. The CPU temperature reached 95 and the GPU was quite low at 74. Now for the same quality settings at 1440p. The game is still playable in the low 30s, which isn't too bad. Bear in mind, overclocking the GPU would probably give you an extra 10%. Now let's take a look at the recently released Gears of War 4. So the settings used, 1080p, VSync off, and basically everything on max. makes mince meat out of this game. About 100 frames per second. A quick look at the temperatures. CPU went up to 95 degrees and the GPU up to 75 degrees. Up next is Crysis III. I would say the frame rate averages around about 55 frames per second, which is pretty good for this game. Now for Grand Theft Auto 5. So basically all settings pretty well much maxed out. Let's see how we get on. Rise of the Tomb Raider is pretty demanding, so let's give this one a shot. So again, let's max everything out here. Wow, so look at that. 91 frames per second. Will anything bring this laptop to its knees? I know Doom's not very demanding, but it'll be a good comparison against the Asus I just reviewed. So looking at the settings on Doom, 1080p, everything there on high, and advanced, pretty much everything on ultra settings. So let's give this a blast. Metro Last Light has been out a while now, but still remains one of the most demanding games out there. These are the settings used to test the game. I ran it at 1440p and 1080p. Look at those results: 88 FPS, 1080p, 61 at 1440p, overclocking giving 66 FPS, beating the Asus GL502 VS at 49 FPS. The GPU continues to run cool at 74 degrees, whilst the CPU again gets towards the 90 degree mark. Rainbow Six Siege is also quite a demanding game, so let's take a look at this. Maxing all the settings out. So at 76 frames per second, the Alienware again beats the Asus at 74 frames per second. Our last game benchmark is The Witcher 3. If there's any game that's going to make this computer buckle, it's The Witcher 3 with everything maxed out and hairworks on. So with everything maxed out and hairworks on, we still beat 60 frames per second. Can't complain at that. So looking at the temperatures, it's pretty much what we've seen before. GPU is fairly cool and the CPU getting a bit toasty. So to test the VR muscle of the Alienware 15R3, we're going to pit it against the Vanishing Ethan Carter. It's playing it very smoothly. Yep, looks okay to me. No jitter. The Alienware 15R3 played this VR game no problem at all without breaking a sweat. Sorry about the long video, guys, but I wanted to get as much information in as I could for you. So let's sum up with a conclusion. And to tell you what, I'm exhausted after all those tests, let me tell you. But I'm very pleased with this laptop. I mean, certainly there's some shortcomings. But all in all, it's a solid computer. It's a solid build. It's going to last you a long time. It generally runs cool. The GPU runs cool, which is nice. The CPU, on the other hand, it's an i7-6820HK. It's overclockable. and even in its base configuration it runs hot. It's got these extra heat pipes to keep that cool, but I don't think they really 100% succeed in that. And certainly when it's getting pushed, I saw temperatures up to about 90 and prime 95, 96 even, and that's getting up there. And you know, you can activate the turbo fan mode in the BIOS, but it sounds like a wind turbine. And to be honest, in prime 95 I saw the same temperature of 96 regardless. So it's an overclockable CPU. That's one of the key selling points of the Alienware. And unfortunately, it gets unstable when you overclock it. That's a downside, and that may be fixed with a BIOS update. It may be fixed with a software patch, but I do feel it's a shame because you are paying extra for that CPU, and you know, you're not getting the full benefit. It does have options in the BIOS for altering the voltage, but you can't change them. So I couldn't try and increase stability there. But to be fair, I don't think even if you increase the voltages, the temperatures would go out of whack. So my advice: keep it at the base CPU clock speed, which still is 100 megahertz faster than the i7-600 HQ, and that does give a bit of extra boost in performance, an extra few frames per second compared to the Asus I reviewed earlier, and you know, that is good. And in its base configuration, it does run cool. It runs cool and quiet. The fans at idle can hardly be heard. At load, it's just a low rushing sound, so that is nice. So I think performance-wise, it's great. It performs great in VR. Looking around at the chassis and upgradability, the back does come off fairly easily, and you got access to 3 SSD slots, which are fantastic. Great upgradability for storage, so that is nice. There's 2 RAM slots, so you can upgrade to 32 gigabytes of RAM, and there's no scary warranty label there, so you know, go ahead at it and upgrade. Ports wise, there are quite a few ports, and it's very future proof with the HDMI 2.0, the Thunderbolt 3, and the USB C port. There's only 2 USB regular size ports, so I wish there was one extra one. I also wish there was a SD card slot. There isn't, so that is a shame. It is heavier than the previous iterations. This is about £8 compared to say £6.5. So, and it's a little bit extra width in it as well. So, but you know, it's okay. In terms of the keyboard and the screen, you know, the keys are nice. I love it. It's a great typing experience. I'm always been a great fan of the trackpad. It's very smooth. The left and right click are separate and don't make any noise. I like that. I like the configuration of these macro keys. You can actually, in essence, have 10 macro keys there to program to open up emails, calculators, and so forth, music apps. So that is very nice. You can configure the colors of the keys, the colors of the trackpad. So that is all very nice, and it's in a nice clean package. So I do like that. It's a solid screen. It doesn't flex much. It doesn't show much in the way of fingerprints. It's cool on your lap. Very nice there. The speakers are great. Fire out the front, so you know, you get good audio. So it's a good all-round laptop. I think the only thing I wish they would change, I would eliminate the extra heat pipes because they're not really keeping the CPU all that cool. I'd probably drop down a level to the i7-600 perhaps and get rid of that, save a bit of weight, and have the same specs as the Asus GL502 VS perhaps. But that being said, the way it is, it's still good. You can configure the screen to have even higher options. You can have a 120 Hertz G-Sync panel or a UHD panel, so that's high resolution. So all those options are good. They weren't available when I bought it. I think it's a recommended buy, you know, certainly. So if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.